Welcome everyone to the Mayor and Council meeting of June 23rd, 2020. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence for the 12,895 lives lost, but also a reflection for the painful and successful progress that our state has made over the last few weeks. Thank you.
I wish to announce that the 48-hour notice, as required under the Open Public Meetings Act, was emailed to the Asbury Park Press, the Coast Star, and the Coaster on January the 9th of 2020. That a copy has been placed on the bulletin board in the borough office, and that a copy has been filed with the borough clerk. Mr. Bunnell?
Here.
Okay, I see you, Randy. Mr. Gubitozzi?
Here.
Mr. Sexsmith?
Here.
Mr. Weber?
You're muted, John.
Here.
I see you. And Mayor Engelstadt.
Here. Our first order of business is the approval of the minutes from the June 9th council meeting. Make a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Bunnell?
Yes.
Mr. Gubitozzi?
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Engelstadt.
Yes. Next up is the administrative report. Mr. Brown?
Thank you, Mayor, Council, and the general public. Tonight, we'll be discussing updates on code enforcement, beach operations, and municipal open space grant. The borough is seeing improved conditions around town, but to further the objectives of town beautification, we'll be looking to hire an additional part-time code enforcement officer that will be focused on property maintenance and zoning enforcement. Unfortunately, zoning enforcement is very much needed in the borough as well. The new part-time code enforcement officer will be a welcome addition to the community development team here at the borough. And the goal is not to give out a bunch of tickets and fines, but to educate the residents about residents, property, and business owners of the borough regulations. Beach operations. Our beach continues to operate very well with some complaints, and we are addressing them daily. We're averaging about 5,600 beachgoers over the last 2 weekends. And the weekdays, we're seeing an average of 2,800 beachgoers. At this time, our current local maximum beachgoers on the beach is a 10,000 capacity for social distancing purposes. Our beach capacity normally is 20,000 under normal conditions. Subsequent to discussion with the governing body, OEM, and administration, we have decided to move our maximum capacity on the beach from 10,000 to 11,000 and order an additional 1,000 adult seasonal badges and place them on sale at a time to be determined in the near future. As soon as we confirm the shipping information on the badges, we'll have more information on the borough's website, and the mayor plans on making a reverse 911 call as well. And finally, the borough just recently closed out the 2016 grant for Sylvan Lake Park Improvement Project Phase 1, and the borough is expected to receive $141,000 from the Monmouth County Park System in reimbursement. Mayor, that concludes my report for this evening.
Any council questions for the borough administrator?
No.
Okay. At this time, it is time for public comments on the agenda items. We'll also have public comment at the end of the meeting as well. David?
Okay. Let me just, there's a few people waiting while I was talking, let them in. We have Mr. Cohen has his hand raised.
Good evening, Mayor. I had a few questions about the contracts that are being approved tonight for the local 152 and for Mr. Cofone, the Public Works Director. Again, none of these are about how the work is done or the individuals that do it. It's really the structural nature of the financial responsibility to the taxpayers on these documents. So I'd like to know who prepared Mr. Cofone's document.
I did. That was a carryover contract from 3 years ago.
Well, yeah, I mean, I know you're busy, Mr. Brown, but this really appears to be just that, a cut and pasted document that I don't believe was reviewed in depth by any of the council. And this is the way we've done business in the past. And I'd like to see that we could change this. If you go to Article 9, the compensation portion of the contract, there is no compensation number on there for 2021, 2022, and 2023, which actually would be the encompassing dates of the contract.
Trying to locate the, keep talking, Mr. Cohen.
So, I mean, I think that, obviously I'm not complaining about Mr. Cofone's compensation. I believe he deserves that. I'd just like the public to know exactly what the compensation is in 2021.
He will match the agreement that we have with the blue and white collar. So he'll be that 2.4, 2.5, 2.6% in those various years.
But I mean, in the formatting used here, there should be obviously considerations next to the dates that are already here for 2019 and 2020. I mean,
Correct.
Again, I'm looking at this like a layperson is going to read this contract and try to break it down and understand what it is.
Correct. Understood. And I'm not disagreeing with you.
Okay. And then I was just wondering why it's a 3-year contract when the 152 contract is a 2-year contract.
No, that's a 3-year contract as well. Everything's 3 years.
No, that one's a 2-year contract.
No, the blue and white collar and the PBA contracts are all 3 years.
No, this says January 2020 to December 31st, 2022. That's 2 years.
20, 21, 22.
20, yeah.
Okay. Oh, so it's
Yeah, 'cause
retroactive.
we're in the middle of this year.
We're going
yeah.
backwards. Okay.
Yeah, that they're gonna get retro.
Okay. In addition to this, I know we have the problem. It's not a problem. It was contractual that our former business administrator is receiving $180,000 in terminal leave this year. And the public was told that that's no longer going to happen. So I'd like to point out 2 things in the Article 6, the sick leave, item 4. If someone takes there's COVID-19. So if someone takes no sick leave days, they get an additional 2 vacation days. Well, what we're doing is we're not promoting someone being sick. I mean, we want them to stay home and not come in so they can get the 2 additional vacation days. I mean, if someone has a fever, they say, well, if I go in, I get 2 additional vacation days if I'm never sick. Well, we want to promote them utilizing the sick days for what they're for, not getting additional vacation days because they came to work sick. It seems counterproductive, especially under the COVID. I mean, are we taking temperatures when they come to work? I mean, it doesn't seem proper to me in a contract. We'd like them.
Well, his sick time is capped at 25,000.
Well, that's my next thing at number 5, because that's not what it says. It says the employee shall have the option, if such option is exercised in writing, to receive terminal leave, which is what Ms. Barrett has, in equal.
But Mr. Cohen, his terminal
employees-
leave will be 25,000.
Well, no, it says the total accumulated sick leave. It doesn't say 25,000.
The
So-
total accumulated sick leave is capped at 25,000.
Well, it needs to say that. It doesn't say that. It says it's his option, but it needs to be written more
I
specific.
think I don't have it in front, but I think the line before it mentions that it's 25,000 cap.
Well, no, but that's part of the option. One's an option and the other's an option. So
Yeah, so
one
either he
has a
can get
number
a-
in it, and what I was saying is there should be a number in both. It should say total accumulated sick leave to a maximum of 25,000.
Okay, all right, I can accept that. That's fine. We can revise that.
And then the, on item number 4, about the accrued vacation time, because he was an employee before 2018. I like a document to be inclusive, Mr. Brown. So what I believe should take place here in item number 4 is that this document should currently reflect the number of sick days that Mr. Cofone has. So on this date, when this contract is signed, you know, a future business administrator knows, a future CFO knows what the sick days were on the date of this contract. So
Okay.
I believe that number should be included. So I would request that it be tabled tonight and just brought back at the next meeting with these changes. I believe they protect the taxpayer, and the contract should be cleaned up a little bit. But that's all I have on that one. On the other one for the 152, we're making a substantial jump here from $22,000 base for employees up to $32,000. So do we know how many employees are going to be qualified for that $10,000 bump?
Yeah, if I recall correctly, it's about 2 or 3 employees.
Okay, but it would be nice if they were named in here so we would know how many we're talking about.
That's
In
not
addition-
normal practice, but I understand what you're saying.
Pardon?
I said that's not normal practice to name them in there, but I understand where you're coming from.
And then on Article 6 for overtime, item 4, Article 6, we're paying 3 hours minimum overtime for regular overtime, but 4 hours if it's on the sewer. So why would there be a differential? It's overtime is overtime. Overtime is overtime. Hello?
Yeah, I'm listening to you.
So.
I mean, what?
So really, why would there be a differential if it's sewer overtime or overtime for regular work?
That is the request from the union, and that's what was accepted.
Okay, but who negotiated with the union? I need to know that.
Me,
You did?
absolutely.
Oh, man, also the other thing I'm questioning is the, where they get time and a half for time when Borough Hall is closed. Okay, that would be overtime, item B. All hours worked during hours of the Borough Hall, when Borough Hall is closed, for example, snow plowing, state of emergency, shall be paid at the rate of time and 1/2.
Correct.
Okay, so does that include weekends? Like if Borough Hall is closed on the weekends, are people getting time and a half?
It would be well, we're already closed, so we're not closing on that day. That's
But you're-
for a weekday. So if we close the front office and we get to go home, and then they're out there plowing in the middle of a winter snowstorm, they're
Well,
getting
well,
time and a half. And
That
it's a
should be
normal-
written more specifically, not as an example, but as specifics, snow plowing, state of emergency, road accident. I mean, there should be a list of things in there that are the specific items that they get the time and a half for, which they'd be entitled to. But that's all I have, Mr. Brown. I would like to see
Okay.
both of these tabled and revised so the public has a better understanding of what the documents are.
Well, I'd have to respectfully disagree. I think they both should be approved tonight. They're in MOA format. We can revise them. They have to come back for final collective bargaining agreement resolution on both contracts to
Okay,
seal the deal. But the MOA gives the unions who both already voted in favor of both these contracts. So both unions are in the position and very happy with the negotiations with the borough at this
Okay,
time.
but again, I'm sure they're happy, but I'm looking to protect the taxpayer. And these open items seem to me to be very gray areas which should be tightened up.
And they certainly will be.
Thank you,
Absolutely.
sir.
Okay.
Anyone else, David?
Let me see here, trying to let people in. No other hands raised, Mayor.
Okay, let's move on to the introduction of ordinance 2020-11 entitled an ordinance supplementing the borough's revised general ordinances with new chapter 328, overcrowding of dwellings to establish and regulate the maximum occupancies of dwellings within the borough of Bradley Beach. I'm going to ask Mr. Cannon to walk us through the genesis of this.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. So as from the workshop session that we had on this ordinance, I had indicated, and I think that anyone who regularly attends the meetings has seen that the governing body is seeking to, as you just heard from the part-time code enforcement recommendation on the administrative side, on the legislative or legal side in my area, we've been working on various ordinances on behalf of the governing body. The short-term rentals ordinance. I know that we've been working on enforcement on the COs, both prior and now during David's arrival. We now have this max occupancy ordinance, and we had, maybe there was another ordinance. Long story short, and we have another ordinance in tow that is in process that we'll be workshopping likely later this summer on the Airbnb issue. And so all these issues the public's heard mentioned, this is part of that effort, in order to have more ready enforcement. This section is being taken out of the uniform code and being put as a police regulation in the town, enforceable by the code enforcement officer or the police department, of course, in those officers' discretion, as we don't control the discretion. But the legislation is in place for the borough to start doing what the administrative side was just talking about, which is increasing hours and vigorousness of enforcement throughout the borough. So if, for members of the public, if they're asking what rules have changed by virtue of this ordinance, virtually none. This is a codification of the IPMC, other than the enforcement aspect of it, which fits in with what you heard from the administrative side just a few minutes ago on the hours of code enforcement, to try to catch up to what's really become you used to just have to worry about the hotels, but now anyone can turn their house into a hotel via the internet, or much more informally. And so the governing body has been striving to address that in various capacities. As I've been sitting here in the short time, I'm sure it was going on before that. But this is part of that effort, in short, to codify it, give more enforcement powers to the officers that are out there on the ground. And then it's up to the administrative side, of course, to direct those efforts. But that's it in a nutshell. The ordinance is relatively straightforward. It tells you how many people you can have in any particular area of a home or dwelling. That is controlled by the International Property Maintenance Code, the most recent version of which is the 2018 version. It's available online for a small fee. It's incorporated by reference into the code already. And without boring everyone to death, there's a table and all the sorts of requirements are there. You can't sleep in the kitchen, in a nutshell. So that was it. I know we're going to have a public hearing, and I'm available to answer any more questions. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. David, I have a quick question. You mentioned in your report an additional part-time code enforcement officer. Do you foresee that individual's hours, including evening, weekends, especially during the summer, to address this if necessary?
Yes, yes, absolutely. They'll be working opposite hours of the part-time code enforcement that we have on staff now.
Okay.
And they'll work some Saturdays as well.
Any council questions or comments for either Mr. Brown or Mr. Cannon?
I had a more of a comment / question for Mr. Cannon. One of the things, one or two individuals, Greg, asked me specifically about the minimum area square footage table. And that is not something that you've created. That is actually something that we've just pulled from state statutes. Is that correct?
Not international uniform code. So there's something called the International Property Maintenance Code that's followed by all, throughout the world, really. And that standard is derived directly from that book. So if you go to if you go to any municipal code and look up this type of ordinance, that table is in there from the code. It's now expressed in square feet per the 2018 version.
So the important thing to note really is this is not anything we've created uniquely, but rather it's conforming completely with, as you said, the international code.
Correct.
Just
Right.
created
Yes, the uniform code. The model uniform. I mean, the technical name is the International Property Maintenance Code, but you can call it whatever you want. Uniform code, model code.
Great, thank you.
I'd just like to make a quick comment, thanking Councilman Gubitosi for his leadership on this, working with Mr. Cannon. And I think it'll tie in very, very well with, as Mr. Brown said, the additional part-time code enforcement officer. But in addition, the push that we've been making on regulating Airbnbs and short-term rentals through the host compliance contract. So thank you to everyone.
Okay, at this time, I will make a motion to introduce ordinance 2020-11. Is there a second?
Second,
Yes.
Al?
yes, but I can't hear Erica.
Yeah, Erica
Oh,
seems,
I'm sorry. That's
Me
my
too.
fault. Sorry. Okay, I got Randy, I got Al. Okay, Mr. Sexsmith,
Yes.
Mr. Weber,
yes,
Mayor Engelstad.
Yes, I'm getting you in stereo, Erica.
Okay, we had to have a little comedic relief here.
Okay, let's move to the consent agenda. The first item is item 2020-147. I'll make a motion to approve the bill list. Is there a second?
Second,
Mr. Bennell,
Yes.
Mr. Gubitosi,
yes,
Mr. Sexsmith,
Yes.
Mr. Weber,
yes,
Mayor Engelstad.
Yes, next up is item 2020-148, the approval of the annual renewal of the alcoholic beverage liquor license for Gladys and Carlotta Incorporated, also known as Bradley Liquors at 1618 Main Street. Make a motion to approve that approval. Is there a second?
second,
Mr. Bennell,
Yes.
Mr. Gubitosi,
yes,
Mr. Sexsmith,
Yes.
Mr. Weber,
yes,
Mayor Engelstad.
Yes, next up is 2020-149, the approval of the annual renewal of alcoholic beverage liquor license for Swami Sharan Incorporated, also known as Shore Wine and Liquors at 810 Main Street. Make a motion for that approval. Is there a second?
second,
Mr. Bennell,
Yes.
Mr. Gubitosi,
yes,
Mr. Sexsmith,
Yes.
Mr. Weber,
yes,
Mayor Engelstad.
Yes. Next up is 2020-150, authorizing a tax overpayment refund in the amount of $353.86 for 611 Ocean Avenue and $222.12 for 314 McCabe Avenue. These are both 100% disabled veteran deductions. Make a motion to approve those refunds. Is there a second?
second,
Mr. Bennell,
Yes.
Mr. Gubitosi,
yes,
Mr. Sexsmith,
Yes.
Weber,
yes,
Mayor Engelstad.
Yes, item 2020-151, due to the fact that we had to cancel a recent art show in May, there were vendors that we need to give money back to. So this authorizes multiple vendor refunds for the May art show cancellation. Make a motion to approve those refunds. Is there a second?
second,
second,
Mr. Bennell, Mr. Gubitosi,
yes,
Mr. Sexsmith,
Yes.
Mr. Weber,
yes,
Mayor Engelstad.
Yes. Item 2020-152, authorize the tax collector to prepare and issue estimated third quarter tax bills. Make a motion to approve that agenda item. Is there a second?
second,
Mr. Bennell,
yes,
Mr. Gubatose,
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith,
yes,
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Mayor Engelstad.
Yes, and the last item on the consent agenda is item 2020-153, the approval of an annual renewal of alcoholic beverage liquor license for Vic's Bar and Restaurant at 60 Main Street. Make a motion for that approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Bennell,
yes,
Mr. Gubatose,
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith,
yes,
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Mayor Engelstad.
Yes. Next up are the resolutions. The first is 2020-154, which authorizes fiscal year 2021 Transportation Trust Fund, Newark Avenue, Phase 2, applications for state aid funding. Make a motion to approve the resolution. Is there a second?
second,
Mr. Bennell,
yes,
Mr. Gubatose,
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith,
yes,
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Mayor Engelstad.
Yes, it's resolution 2020-155 establishes petty cash funds for the municipal clerk in the amount of $100, the police chief in the amount of $100, and the recreation director in the amount of $500. Make a motion to approve the resolution. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Bennell,
yes,
Mr. Gubatose,
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith,
yes,
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Mayor Engelstad.
Yes. Item 2020-156 is a resolution for the approval of the memorandum of agreement with UFCW Local 152. Make a motion to approve the resolution. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Bennell,
yes,
Mr. Gubatose,
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith,
yes,
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Mayor Engelstad.
Yes. Thank you, David, for your work on that very much. Item Resolution 2020-157 is the approval of the contract for the Department of Public Works Superintendent Biagio Cofone for the period of 3 years, 2020 through 2022. Make a motion to approve the contract. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Bennell,
yes,
Mr. Gubatose,
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith,
yes,
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Mayor Engelstad.
Yes. Resolution 2020-158 is a resolution correcting the summer seasonal employee salaries. Make a motion to approve the resolution. Is there a second?
second,
Mr. Bennell,
yes,
Mr. Gubatose,
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith,
yes,
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Mayor Engelstad.
Yes. Item 2020-159 appoints summer seasonal employees, beach utility cashiers. Make a motion to approve the resolution. Is there a second?
second,
Mr. Bennell,
yes,
Mr. Gubatose,
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith,
yes,
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Mayor Engelstad.
Yes. Resolution item 2020-160 is the appointment of summer seasonal employees for the beach utility lifeguards. Make a motion to approve the resolution. Is there a second?
second,
Mr. Bennell,
yes,
Mr. Gubatose,
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith,
yes,
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Mayor Engelstad.
Yes, and Resolution 2020-161 is the appointing of summer seasonal employees for the Beach Utility Department of Public Works. Make a motion to approve the resolution. Is there a second?
yes,
Mr. Bennell,
yes,
Mr. Gubatose,
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith,
yes,
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Mayor Engelstad.
Yes, and due to the fact that we are still in the final stages of approving our municipal budget, we have to do a resolution 2020-162, which authorizes temporary budget appropriations. Make a motion to approve the resolution. Is there a second?
second,
Second.
Mr. Bennell,
yes,
Mr. Gubatose,
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith,
yes,
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Mayor Engelstad.
Yes, thank you. Item 15, Mayor and Council reports. Council President Weber.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate it. So I just want to thank the Community Development Department for all the extra work that they've done with respect to getting our restaurants squared away, reviewing their plans for outdoor dining. It's funny because I think it may actually not last that long. Like, we're going to be back indoors sooner or later, but appreciate all that extra work. So thanks to the Community Development Department. At the Environmental Commission, they have been looking at and talking about for a few last couple meetings, exploring community energy aggregation. And I'll just say, I'm going to explore this with the administration and my council colleagues. It's basically, Bradley Beach would become a buyer of electricity. We could buy green energy if we wanted to, and people could opt out if they want, but it's just a way to help lower people's energy bills and also buy greener energy. So I'll be talking to the mayor, council, administration about that in the future. Up at the beach, it's looking good. Beach has been great. I did make an observation that the vast majority of our badge checkers are not wearing masks. And being that we've just, passed resolutions regarding their salaries, and I think it's part of their employment, I'm hoping that they will come to their senses and actually wear their masks. At the same time, I noticed the badge checkers not wearing masks. I see the DPW guys, they're wearing masks. The guy driving the garbage truck is wearing a mask. The guy driving the, little cart taking away the trash from the beach is wearing a mask. The guys working on the bocce courts, they're wearing masks. So I'm assuming, if you're an employee of this town, I want you to wear a mask. I think that should be standard. And just reiterating some news out there, it's been studied and it's been determined that if 80% of the people wore masks, we'd be done with this virus. We'd be done in 2 months. If in April 1st, everybody started wearing masks, we'd be done with this by June 1st. It's that important. So, and I just want to add also, people, if we can explore requiring people to wear masks to go into the restrooms at the beach, I think that would be a good thing. You can't go into City Hall without wearing a mask. You probably can't, go into any public building without wearing a mask. I don't know why our bathrooms should be any different. And just very general stuff, I'm really happy that we passed a resolution regarding petty cash. It's just one of those little things, like, let's just actually establish a policy and a procedure. I think those are great improvements that we're making. So that is the extent of my report, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Sexsmith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to follow on with John on that one comment regarding the petty cash funds and point out that thank you to Administrator Brown and our CFO, Ms. Rice, because this is something that the state requires us to do, and we have not passed a resolution like this since 2001, I believe. So again, they both identified a gap in our processes and our controls, and they acted very promptly to close them. So thank you very much. As for the police department, per the chief, it's been a very quiet month, and he does not have an awful lot to report. I would like to say that the mayor and I will be both welcoming and addressing the newly hired special officers tomorrow morning during their training day. On a personal note, this past weekend, there was an auto accident that occurred at the intersection in front of my house. Thankfully, no one was hurt. 2 Bradley Beach patrolmen were quickly on the scene. And right from the moment they got out of their cars, they were extremely professional, completely concerned with the safety and well-being of everyone in the 2 vehicles, asking all of them numerous times if they wanted EMS to respond. I'd like to commend these 2 officers publicly. They're Patrolman Redmond and Patrolman Lightbody, who you may recall just started with our police department this winter. So well done to both officers and the police. Fire department and EMS. Hang on, I got to go to my phone for that one. Fire department responded to 8 calls so far this month. There was a mulch fire and 3 assists for first aid. First aid responded to 4 water rescue as part of the Answers team. None of those were on our beaches. There were 13 medical emergencies, no COVID-19 contacts, 3 fire calls, and 1 motor vehicle accident. And that does not include the emergency call that happened right at 5 or 5:30 this afternoon. I don't have any details on that one yet. They'd also like to remind everyone that the EMS and Fire Fund Drive is in progress. As an all-volunteer squad, they need the donations to keep the squad running. The borough makes a small stipend to both departments to cover utilities and some basic equipment repairs, but they really do truly need the donations from the public going forward. And that's it. That's the end of my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Gubitosi.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I begin my council reports, I did want to comment very briefly on the approvals we granted tonight for the DPW and for Biagio Cafone. And in order to do that, I want to start by actually thanking Mr. TJ Cohen, because TJ, I know you and I agree often and on many occasions disagree. And Mr. Cohen was very well spoken and very well researched. And I think I speak for the entire council when I say we appreciate the questions you raised and the challenging nature of your questions on behalf of the community. I also want to share with the community that Mr. Cohen is actually much more of a gentleman than we may realize, because before this meeting, he and I did have a chance to sit down, and he did challenge me personally on many of those same issues. In fact, because he wanted to understand the council's position on some of these things. So I'd like the community to know that that was not a blind side. Thank you, Mr. Cohen, for raising the issues. I think from a council standpoint, we are extremely thrilled to be in a position to continue the great relationship that we've enjoyed for many years with the DPW and with Biagio Cafone. And other than the couple of items, Mr. Cohen, that Mr. Brown did say he could incorporate, I still believe that you raised great questions. I still believe we came out with a really good solution though for the borough. Regarding my council reports, I'd like to start with one of the committees I've been a liaison to, the Complete Count Committee. And specifically, this is a group led by John Eric Advento and Larry Fox, who are focused on helping Bradley Beach complete the 2020 census. Right now, we're actually not in very good shape. We do have an extension to October 31st, I believe. Yes, October 31st. But last year, the borough completed, we had about an 80%, I think 79.4% response rate. At this point in time, understanding that COVID is a big interrupter or disruptor, we are hovering just a little bit over 50%. So we have a long way to go to get close to last year and hopefully beyond that. I just want to emphasize for anyone listening how important completing the census for 2020 is. This guides over $800 billion of federal funding. It also determines state by state how many representatives we sent to Congress, we being New Jersey. And there is clearly the trickle-down effect. What comes to the state then comes to the various municipalities and communities in the form of infrastructure support, in the form of support for our schools, hospitals, et cetera. So just to let everyone know, my understanding is there will be 2 more survey efforts to get census data completed. 2 of those efforts will occur between now and August 11th. And by October 31st, the survey process must be completed. So after August 11th, there will be door-to-door non-response follow-up, where actual people will be knocking on doors to interview residents. So please, residents, do everything you can to complete these surveys as they come in between now and August 11th. Otherwise, expect to knock on your door. That's probably the single most important announcement I have, but I do have a number of others. One, Mr. Brown mentioned that we did expand our goal of selling seasonal badges by another 1,000. There's been a significant demand, clearly, but what was really important and not necessarily mentioned was the fact that there was a lengthy discussion internally that on a one-off basis, as Mr. Brown polled the council, that we could do this safely. And the complete agreement is that we can do that. We have engineering support for the fact we have capacity on the beach. We have a commitment from our police department to monitor and hopefully not have to do this a lot, but if necessary, manage social distancing. So we are doing this in part to appease our public and the broader public outside of Bradley as well, to make these badges available, but we are doing that fully conscious of our commitment to maintaining safety on our beaches. The Main Street Task Force has created a resident survey specifically asking our residents to provide feedback on Main Street. You can find this survey link on our website. There will be other social media linkages that go up, but please look for it. If you complete the survey, you will be eligible for prizes, gift certificates at our Main Street merchants, and so forth. Separately, the Main Street Task Force has pulled together what I'll call considerations that might help address some of the parking challenges we face in the borough. And they will be having a meeting with, I believe, our BA and the Chief of Police tomorrow to discuss some of those considerations. The Sylvan Lake Commission is in the process of securing an algae treatment for the lake. Our BA and our CFO are coordinating with Avon by the Sea to make sure that whatever expenses are incurred, we're splitting those accordingly. Our Sylvan Lake Commission is actively involved in those discussions. As our BA announced previously, that we're building a new borough website with an organization called Civic Plus. We had our first meeting with the designer of that website, and I thought we had some preliminary great conversation, but it is just the first step. A lot more to come on that, but we are beginning to frame the model of what the primary site would look like. And at some point, I imagine we'll try to invite at least a handful of public volunteers, if they're interested, to serve as a focus group for us to provide feedback. The community center has a task force and recently filled out. And I know Mr. Paul Nishampkin will be organizing a meeting of that task force shortly. On a related note, our BA, Mr. Brown, has shared with me that he plans shortly in the next month or so to begin reviewing grant funding opportunities for our community center. And then finally, I want to echo what Mr. Sexsmith said moments ago, compliments to two of our newest leaders, those being Mr. David Brown and Ms. Sandra Rice. They have encountered a number of challenges, so much of it COVID driven, but the old adage, when it rains, it pours, is certainly been true within Bradley Beach's administrative leaders. And the two of you have done a phenomenal job supporting the borough. And again, our collective appreciation for all the work done. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Councilmember Bennell. He was here a second ago. He was in the corner of my screen and now he's gone. Okay, if Randy comes back, we'll let him jump in at any time. Just my report. Want everyone to mark your calendars for this Saturday at 4:30. As you know, our graduating 8th graders, 29 of them, did not have the traditional graduation. They had a virtual graduation on the 16th, but a group of the 8th grade parents whose children are graduating from, or who graduated from Bradley Beach Elementary School, are gathering the students on the beach for a group photo. And we think it'd be a really nice touch if as many residents came out as possible, appropriately distanced in the vicinity of 2nd Avenue and the beach, to give these kids the round of applause that they deserve. So 4:30 this Saturday at 2nd Avenue and the beach. Update from the library. The library will begin curbside materials pickup this Thursday, June 25th. They are currently testing the process to work out any procedural kinks. The request for materials can be made through the library's catalog or by phone or email. Also, their book drops are open to receive library materials patrons have held on to during the library's closure. With regards to summer camp, the Recreation Commission hopes to have a resolution this week. There's a number of new issues that they're dealing with, obviously, this year that they haven't had to in the past. So they're working with the borough administrator and the borough attorney to hopefully resolve those. Just got the unfortunate news that the Bradley Beach 5K is scheduled for Saturday, August 15th, has been canceled and will return next year. So that's a tough one because that's not just a fundraiser for many organizations, obviously first and foremost the fire department, but it's also a great town event. And it's just another in a series of things that we could not do this year due to circumstances way beyond our control. I want to congratulate Biagio Cafone on his new contract as superintendent. He is doing an outstanding job. The morale in that department has never been higher. It's a strong, cohesive unit, and they have just done tremendous things. As Randy reminds us on a bi-weekly basis, it's just a well-run department. And some of there was a question before about the increase in the base salary. We were by far the lowest paid DPW entry-level department in Monmouth County, or at least in this Jersey Shore area. And that was an overdue correction. Also, we now have health insurance available to new employees from the get-go, and there's no longer a 3-year wait for that to kick in. Some overdue changes. So David, again, thank you for all of your work on that. And that is the end of my report. Has Randy returned?
No, Mayor, I don't see him.
Okay. So now is the time for public comment. David, I'll let you let us know who would like to say something. And there is a 5-minute limit, and you have one opportunity to comment.
We have Mary Ann Spillman with her electronic hand raised.
Thank you, David. I had my hand raised before the resolution for the overcrowding resolution, but I think you didn't see it. But at any rate, I think that it's been a bit confusing listening to the way you're discussing this, because this has nothing to do with rentals, has nothing to do with Airbnb or short-term rentals. And when you roll it into the same discussion, I think it confuses the issue. This has to do with people in their own homes having overnight guests. And to me, that looks very intrusive on individual property owners to have to think about and worry about whether they've got too many people in their home, in their own guests, not renters. This has nothing to do with renters. And we had a workshop on this in which several items were raised and have not been addressed in this particular resolution. And one of the things was that the definition of an occupant. What is the age group? And somebody asked, does this include 5-year-olds? Does it include 12-year-olds? Nowhere in here does it say what the definition of an occupant is. And the other question that came up in that workshop was whether there's a time frame for the code officer to respond, and that's not addressed in here either. I think it was kind of unclear at that. It seemed to me it was unclear even at that workshop, because somebody said, well, this will help the renters, short-term renters understand what the rules are. This has nothing to do with short-term renters. And I think that people need to understand this is a guest in your own home, and your home has to meet these requirements for space, et cetera. I think that needs to be very clear. And then why do we have these workshops if we're not going to incorporate the feedback that come from those workshops and the questions that are raised there? So do we know what an occupant is? Do we know that now? Because it's not stated here. This is supposed to be complaint driven. How many complaints? It's supposed to be a pattern of complaints, and there's nothing in here that says anything about a pattern of complaints. And I'm questioning whether it was even necessary at all, given that when the police captain was asked whether we get any complaints like this, do we get many complaints of this type? And he said no. So, I'm questioning why we have it in the first place. It seems like such an intrusion on homeowners. And secondly, if we are going to have it, why don't we incorporate the kinds of questions that are raised when we have a workshop?
So just as a reminder, this was only the introduction tonight. At the next meeting, the second Tuesday in July, there will be a public hearing. So we do have the minutes and we'll incorporate your comments. But if you want to make them again at the public hearing at the first meeting in July, you can do so as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. David?
We have a Peter.
Can't hear you, Peter.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is all new to me, so bear with me. My name is Peter Bacallion, and I'd like to comment on something that is not on the agenda tonight, but it is Article 3 of proposed ordinance 2020-09, which seeks to redefine privately owned trees as public property. Article 3's highlights include a voluminous and costly application process to remove a tree, complete with appeals, fees, committees, consultants, diagrams, explanations, and just about every reason why people are leaving New Jersey. Fees to replace trees would run up to $3,000. Penalties could hit $9,000 if you cut your own tree, and a fine of $1,000 if you don't let a shade tree official on your private property. No search warrant required. It's a rather unique spin on the Fourth Amendment. This ordinance has been presented to you as if it were settled law. It is not. It is contested law and a gateway to litigation, and I'll be specific. 2 months ago in Michigan, U.S. District Court Judge George Stay, a Clinton appointee, declared a similar ordinance as an overreaching and unconstitutional violation of landowner rights. The Michigan legislature is moving to make his ruling the rule of law of the state. 1 year ago in Florida, the Private Property Rights Protection Act went into effect, where municipal governments are not allowed to require any permits, notice, or approval from residents who wish to remove their own dangerous trees from their properties. In Texas, the state legislature has removed onerous fees for replanting trees on their own property by the town. Other states like Arkansas and Georgia are challenging these tree ordinances as a property rights grab. Now, what concerns me even more than this ordinance itself is that our town is voting on controversial legislation, and this is very controversial legislation, when in the words of our mayor, we are still in the state of an emergency, and our townsfolk are either unable or legally restricted by the borough itself to lawfully assemble for the customary open exchange of ideas. The Open Public Meetings Act of New Jersey ensures that access to meetings are not limited to a specific category of people or a profession. Those of us who are seniors, disabled, hearing impaired, have limited internet access, and have pre-existing health conditions that make us extremely susceptible to this virus are in isolation. Online and often glitchy schemes like Zoom are not a substitute. Computer access cannot be a precondition of citizenry. The library is closed. The senior center is closed. Most folks don't know this legislation is even being considered. There is practically no word of mouth. Others are distracted with staying sane and solvent during this emergency. They seek to regain employment and pay their mortgages, which, by the way, included the trees that they purchased. They want to pay their taxes, education, healthcare, and home maintenance, and they're just hanging on. It's nice that we put placards on lawns telling everyone how much we care about healthcare workers who are in the direct line of fire. I know quite a few of them. But passing far-reaching laws that are unrelated to this pandemic at this time, laws to which every one of those workers cannot give adequate attention, is a violation of public trust. And we're better than that. We're Bradley Beach. Please, I ask you to heed the words of Governor Murphy and be patient. Debate this legislation when we can do so in an open atmosphere where people, all the people, can discuss it. But first, give us time to catch our breath, reacquaint ourselves with our neighbors, and mourn our dead. I thank you for your service to this community. That is the conclusion of my comments tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. David?
Deborah Hatkins.
Yes, hi, good evening. It's Deborah Hatkins, 807 Ocean Avenue. Regarding the SALT, the Destination Restaurant on Ocean Avenue, a petition that over 60 people signed opposing, and an opposition letter with 15 signatures were sent over to the borough on June 8th. Borough was asked to post these docs on the agenda, and they weren't. And I was just curious as how the council intends to address this opposition and the petition to stop the salt project.
Mr. Cannon, would you like to help us out with that question, where we are currently in the process? Obviously, with regards to the posting of the petition and those value items, I apologize, that hasn't taken place yet. We'll make sure that's rectified. But with regards to where we are in the process, I'll ask our borough attorney to update us on that.
Thank you, sir.
Sure. So Ms. Hatkins had forwarded some materials that I know to Erica, and I believe I was copied on some of them, maybe not others. I'm not entirely sure, but I do know that everything that Ms. Hatkins sent to our borough clerk, Erica, was forwarded to the governing body, and you guys got all that. In terms of posting it to the website, we don't accept citizen or resident submissions for posting to the website. Generally, that's agenda materials. However, that doesn't mean that Ms. Hatkins' materials were ignored in the official record. They were entered by the clerk into the minutes of the meeting and referenced therein. So they ultimately will be posted, I believe, on the website as part of the record when the minutes are prepared. But in terms of posting them in advance of the agenda, we don't do the preparation for public comment on behalf of the residents and citizens and publish their materials. So that's why they weren't posted at that point, but they will ultimately be up there because they're part of the record of the minutes that Erica prepared for the meeting. So I don't want Ms. Hatkins to think that we ignored her. So that's, we certainly did not. And the governing body received everything that she sent to any of the officials. And that's the first part of the question. The second part of the question is what the council plans to do. At this point, the council will not comment on the matter insofar as a litigation has been filed against the town. As you know, a process was established to award this lease and then negotiate it with public input and comment. That process has been challenged by a group called Save Bradley Beach Boardwalk Incorporated, a nonprofit incorporated for the purposes of challenging that legal process. So they have filed appropriate legal paperwork in court. I have discussed that against both the borough and Caveman Culinarian. I have discussed that with Caveman Culinarian's attorney as co-defendants. And so at this juncture, pending the resolution of that legal question, the entire project is by mutual agreement of the parties on hold. And so the borough's answer is due in a couple weeks, and there's an executive session scheduled tonight wherein I will explain to the governing body, who has not yet heard the full explanation of that lawsuit because we received it between meetings. We will have a broad discussion on that topic, and they'll be brought up to speak. But at this point, there'll be no public comment because there is indeed pending litigation at this juncture.
Okay. Thank you. David?
We have Superintendent of Public Works, Biagio Cofone.
Hi, guys. I just want to thank you on behalf of myself and the Public Works for approving the contract. We look forward to working as hard as we always do for you guys, for the residents. Thank you, Mayor and Council, and thank you, Business Administrator Brown, for teaching me so much in 3 months. I look forward to working with you for many years ahead. Thank you.
Congratulations. David?
We have Mr. TJ Cohen. You're on mute, TJ.
Trying to be polite.
There you go.
I have a couple questions for you, Mr. Brown.
Okay.
I liked your comment about the part-time code officer. Is that something that could be on the close horizon?
Yes, I'm targeting August 2020.
Okay, and then do we have any status? A lot of people have been asking me about the rec camp. Do we know any timeframes? I know you have to hire the staff. You have a lot to do with Sean. So I was wondering what the status is for the kids on that.
There's a lot of liability questions from the Recreation Committee and the director, and they're sorting that out. And then they will, they'll get back to us to let us know if they're going to open the camp.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then 2 or 3 months ago, at the beginning of COVID, I know there was a line item for an autoclave machine for the police and first aid. I was wondering what the status is on that. Is that a successful project? I know it was approximately $20,000 to purchase the machine. I'm just wondering if it's been a successful way to decontaminate.
It's a 50 to 60% success because we've only gotten the chemicals in to date. We're still waiting for them to ship us the ultimate item that will disperse the chemicals. But we still are in need of it.
So we haven't received the machine yet, 100% of the machine?
No.
Okay. And then, Mr. Sexsmith, I was wondering, Councilman Sexsmith, your comments, are you saying we haven't had petty cash controls for 19 years? Is that your comment?
My comment is that the state requires us to appoint administrators and maintain that list accurately, and we have not done that in nearly 20 years. I believe there have been petty cash controls, but not in accordance with the state requirements.
So we didn't do it the state way, we did it the Bradley Beach way. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. And then I'd like to thank Mr. Cannon for his comments on the ordinance. It is very refreshing to have someone walk us through it and make it a lot easier for the public. I think you did a nice presentation tonight, and I hope we keep that going. And I appreciate your comments, Mr. Gubitosi. With those minor changes that I mentioned, I would be 100% behind those contracts. I just felt that there's little things in there that could be misconstrued by future business administrators, judges, possibly in the future, or future lawyers. So I'm looking to have those things included to better protect the public. But thank you very much for your comments, and thanks for taking my comments earlier. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. Dave?
We have Nancy Meadow.
Yes. I don't know if I'm more concerned about wasting natural resources or money, but I do know that at the Ocean Park Avenue Beach, these touchless showers that, as I understand, a consultant was needed to purchase, mine doesn't turn off. It's not turned off from the day it was installed. It doesn't drip. It literally doesn't turn off. So I have spoken very nicely with very nice public works guys who say we'll adjust it, and the adjustment works for maybe a minute. So I can't imagine the water bill that this borough will get. I don't know if it's unique to my beach, but also the planet will run out of water. So I really hope that while you're all praising Public Works and the choices made, that maybe we need to have our old shower back. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you. Dave?
There are no other electronic hands up.
Councilmember Bennell, we lost you for a while. Did you have a report?
Yes, I did. Sorry about getting lost. I have very bad connectivity here. I spoke to DPW at length today, and again, they are, I'm not going to say overwhelmed anymore. They're starting to get back into the swing of things. They've gotten over some of the hurdles as far as the showers on the beach go. I've gone to every shower on the beach, and they do shut off. Some of them take a little more time than others. They've gotten extra parts. They're working on it. It's a learning curve. I think part of the problem is that it's somewhat of a novelty to people, especially those under the age of 12, who I've seen jumping up and down on them like trampolines. So hopefully we'll get past that soon. But they're working well. Also went to a meeting with the Quality of Life Committee last night. It was a very productive meeting. They are going to try and lend some help to DPW with some of the plantings and planning that we do for the landscaping around town to try and lighten the load for DPW. I think it's going to be a very good partnership. And I would also say that it's been very concerning to me about the financial matters that have been coming up over the last 3 to 4 weeks. That Tim and Al and John have all been concerned about. And I think that Sandy and Dave are going to make some very significant changes for the better. And I hope that everybody joins in the effort to improve the way we handle our money. There have been a fair number of recommendations from previous auditors that appear to have been left at the curb, for lack of a better word. And I'm very encouraged that Dave and Sandy are picking up on these things, and they're putting some checks and balances in place to make sure that the changes that were recommended 7, 8 years ago are enacted. That's my report.
Okay. David, any more public
Hey,
comment?
Mr. Mayor, if I could respond to a couple things, if that's okay?
Sure.
Thanks. Just for Peter, thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing your comments. We hear you. Just want you to know that, our first workshop on the new shade tree ordinance was last July. So we're basically a year in. There's been a lot of public meetings. And just with respect to this format of meeting, we get more people. There's 48 people on this call right now. We've had 60 and 70 in some recent council meetings. We're getting more participation on Zoom than in person. So, we got more people's input and more people hearing about this, in addition to the traditional ways that we get word out about proposed ordinances. And just with respect to, passing legislation that's not related to the pandemic, we've had to pass a lot of things that are not related to the pandemic. I mean, even today, we're hiring staff at the beach and we're setting their salaries, and we're addressing overcrowding, and we've addressed other zoning things. So, we're 3 months into this. Life goes on. I think we'd be delinquent if we weren't legislating the things that we need in Bradley Beach. We got rid of a shade tree commission probably 6 years ago, maybe 7 at this point. It's in dire need. We're addressing it. With respect to the lawsuits you mentioned in Michigan, if you want to pass those along, that would be great. We're not basing this law on laws in other states. We're basing it on New Jersey towns like Princeton and Montclair that have these ordinances that haven't been challenged by the courts. But it's all good information. That's why we have these meetings. And if you send what you have along, we'd love to take a look at it. So, and I appreciate the time. And Ms. Hatkins, just the attorney said it, but just so you know, we got those petitions. Just want to reiterate, we got them, we got that and the other materials. So we hear you.
Hey, John, I couldn't agree more about the participation on this format. And I really hope that moving forward, when we go back to live meetings, that we continue this and we get this kind of participation, because we haven't had this in years, and it's great.
I would like to say something about that. My name is Diane Rosenthal. I thank you guys all for sitting there and doing work for the town day after day and week after week. I would like to say that some of the participation you're getting is people who can't do anything else and work and live by computers, and they're all young. Anybody who's older didn't really know there were meetings going on because they're stuck at home trying to stay safe. Almost nobody knew about legislations being passed at this time. I myself am, through my work, have to Zoom all the time, and yet I could not get onto this connection until I tried 3 times. And evidence of that, also Mr. Bunnell could not get on for a while as well. So this is a poor alternative. It may suit some younger people, but we're basically saying so long to anybody who's hearing impaired and deaf, which would be two of my neighbors, anybody who doesn't have a computer at home, anybody who doesn't understand what those pounds and hashes and all of this stuff means in Germantown entry code. So I do think it's somewhat restrictive. I'm delighted people are on the call and listening. I think that's fantastic. My other thing that I just wanted to bring up is that you mentioned that you've been looking at these this particular, I guess I don't know what I'd call it, tree commission thing for a long time. That said, you're bringing it up in a time when many of my colleagues have lost their jobs because we don't work at desks. We can't remotely. We are in-person workers, and so right now many of us can't go to work, so we can't pay our mortgage, and we may have been granted leave to delay paying mortgages, bills, and this, but they will all come due. And the very notion that at this moment, while I'm trying to go to work and do my job properly, people behind my back are trying to figure out ways that they're going to come onto my property and tell me, I mean, I don't need any trees, I'm full of trees, but to come and tell me that I should plant this tree or that tree, that's completely inappropriate. I'm shocked to even learn about this. And we did have a tree commission before, and it had some just fine, portions to it. But this new thing that I'm reading is incredibly punitive. So if we're trying to raise money by taxes, let's just raise money by taxes, but not tell people, like some of my neighbors who are, again, elderly, that now you can't take this down if it's falling. You have to take care of this tree. You have to rake the leaves. And by the way, this is at a time when the public works, although they're doing a fantastic job, we barely get our debris taken away. In fact, 2 weeks ago, I was scrambling on a Monday morning to get all my debris to the curb, having worked all night, all 5'2" of me, when a man in a enormous truck with lights blaring, I thought it was the police coming to arrest somebody in the neighborhood, stops at my road and then shouts from inside his car, "I'm going to have to ticket you, summons you." I said, "What?" And he said, and from the distance of his car, he started yelling me things about some ordinance and whatnot. And that really was a very, very unpleasant experience for little me on my sidewalk. And so while I'm grateful that we have a public works, and I know they're busy, part of maybe raising the salaries, give them some awareness that all he had to do is he could have just helped me put the stuff in his enormous truck and drive me to the dump instead of having me haul it back for 10 days in my backyard where it would sit festering and attracting mosquitoes while we're in the middle of a pandemic. So that said, I have some nice things to offer if I could. I know all of you campaigned and we voted for you because you were talking about Main Street and improving the town, and so I have some ideas for that while we're doing positive. The one thing is maybe we could give all our businesses, our family-owned small businesses, a break, especially food places, and not charge them this year for permits to have tables on the sidewalk. I think everybody knows what 6 feet is now, and maybe we could let those people have nice tables and chairs outside so the time would look nice and people could enjoy it, and we could once again patronize these places better. And also, if we are going to send people in public works around threatening with summons, might I suggest instead of the big truck, we use one of those little three-wheeler guys. So we're saving on gas, lights, idling, and all those other costs. That's what I have to say. And thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I can respond to that, is that okay?
Sure.
Thank you. Ms. Rosenthal, I appreciate your comments. Just want to make sure everybody understands about this tree ordinance.
I'm sorry, who are you? I cannot see you. I'm on a phone call.
Apologize. It's Councilman John Weber. So
thank you.
It's just, I want to make sure if people read this ordinance, I don't know if they're, what they're misinterpreting, but we are not coming on your property and telling you that you have to plant trees with this ordinance. What the ordinance says, it does, of course, it regulates trees in the public right of way, the borough owns. If you want to chop down a tree on your property because it's diseased or there's a dangerous limb or whatever, you're going to expand, you're going to put a deck, you're going to expand your house, you can chop down a tree. Like, that's not a problem. The only issue is if you just want to chop down trees because you feel like chopping down trees, yes, This ordinance is written, so yes, you will pay into a fund that helps us plant more trees in the town. So I just want to make that 100% clear. And with respect to waiving the cafe license fee that the Main Street business pay, I brought that up probably at our first meeting in May. So we have been talking about that. Maybe the
Great.
borough administrator could confirm for me, but that's already a done deal. The only slip up with that is when I proposed that in May, I had never imagined that anybody had actually already paid that license. Apparently, a couple people did pay that, but they're going to get paid back because we're waiving the cafe license, and that's been what we've all accepted for a couple months now. So great idea. We're on that, and just want to clarify on the trees. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
And just for everyone who had questions about the tree ordinance, its next step is this Thursday before the planning board. So if you would like to make comments there as well, that meeting is also at 6:30 and will also be available through Zoom. David?
We just have Peter's hand raised again.
I wanted to respond a bit to Mr. Weber, who asked me some things.
Peter, if you could get closer to your microphone, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Very hard to hear you.
Hard to hear me. Well, that's the problem that we have with Zoom.
Okay, you're good now.
All right. Number one, there is a high degree of uniformity with these laws. The same think tanks, these ordinance, the same think tanks are put. If you go online, you'll see the same thing, same kind of PowerPoint presentations, how to get this done in your community, what to say, all these kinds of things. We're talking about property rights. That is the United States Constitution. You are impinging on those rights with this. There's no question about that. You're saying that the trees are not my trees. They're the trees. And you have jurisdiction over that. Lines that I invite everyone to try and read. What's currently online is a red line crossed out copy of this legislation. It is extremely punitive. It does talk about the fact that if you don't let someone on your ground, it's going to be $1,000 fine. The initial draft of this was a $200 fine up to $1,000. Now it's just $1,000. There's so much that is objectionable about this, and it's nice that Princeton hasn't had a lawsuit, but I assure you, this is a highly litigious piece of legislation that we're going to be spending law firms to deal with. And we are in the middle of a pandemic. I cannot, yes, you started this a year ago, but this law is still being monkeyed with and talked about, and people are disenfranchised by this process. Make no mistake. And frankly, I'm not worried about Princeton. Gee, nothing went wrong in Princeton. We're not in Princeton. This is Bradley Beach. We have people who are hurting, and you're talking about $3,000, $9,000 fines. People are looking for work there. They're doing the best they can. This is an inappropriate law at this time, and people cannot discuss it in an open manner. By your own borough laws, we can't even assemble. You can't hear things in a cafe. You can't. The whole word of mouth aspect is non-existent. It's not who we are. It's not the way we operate. This is maybe good intention, but it is bad legislation. And we are walking into a minefield. I guarantee you that. I know it.
Okay, thank you. David?
So we have Alan Rapp.
Hi. I just wanted to comment on a couple of things. One is that one of the things that we had been saying for a whole year was talking about transparency. And I took issue last year with the borough auditor, who I'm grateful is gone. And obviously this is evidenced by the fact that this petty cash and the cash issue is so relevant now, and it is coming to light. I think that it's absolutely imperative upon the mayor and council to realize, as I know you do, that this money is not anybody's but the public's money, and that for the public to have trust, they need to have confidence to know that especially cash, green dollar bills, are being taken care of appropriately, coming into the borough, counted and deposited in a timely manner. It's very critical for everybody to feel comfortable about their government, or our government, that this is being done. The other thing that I did want to say is that I did call the League of Municipalities because, as you guys know, I was a former council person, and I did ask about the Open Public Meeting Act and how it was applied to these meetings, and what their feelings were, since they would be, one source. Because I did have a conversation with Loretta Weinberger, who is, as we all know, has been around for a very long time, and her suggestion was to talk to the league. And they felt that the best intention for all municipalities was to do Zoom, and to get, as Bradley Beach does so well, puts out, how to join a Zoom meeting, what you need to do, cut and paste. These are extraordinary times. Everybody's, and I think Gary has said this before at the very beginning, this is all new to a lot of us. No one's ever had a plan like this before. It's not like there was another hurricane or a tornado, God forbid, or something like that. Everybody's just going along and trying to find the best way to get everybody informed. And I'm a little resentful, I think, of people thinking that this mayor and council are trying to hide anything or besmirch anybody's rights. This is all a new learning process. And I think from, being a council person for 12 years, you guys are doing a terrific job. David, you're doing great. Sandy, I'm amazed at the things that you've created. I don't have to say how great Biagio is and Lenny, because they've been there a long time and they know that what they're there. But I'm a full support of this mayor and council of doing the right thing. And I know that this ordinance that for the trees will be fully vetted by John Weber. He is one guy who will hug a tree at all costs and make sure that his fellow citizens of Bradley Beach are done correctly and not hurt financially. Full confidence in John Weber there. That's all I have to say tonight. I want to thank you for your service.
Thank you, Alan. David?
I'd just like to say real quick, this format is not going to be the sole format. The council and the mayor would like nothing more than to have live meetings. This format is going to be a supplement to live meetings going forward for people who can't make it to the meeting. Now there's an extra opportunity to bring more people into the fold.
Well said. David?
That's it, Mayor.
Okay, everybody, don't forget Saturday at 4:30 to celebrate our Bradley Beach Elementary School grads at 2nd Avenue and the beachfront. Make a motion to close the meeting. Is there a second?
I thought.
We're not going to keep the meeting going forever, so I'll second it.
Yeah.
Well, I thought Mr. Cannon said something about an executive session.
Yes, I thought that too.
I wasn't aware of that.
Mr.
Yeah, I
Cannon.
wasn't. He did say that, but I'm not aware of that, nor are we prepared to do that.
Greg, are we doing this?
I thought that Eric had put it on the agenda, but I could be
No,
wrong.
I had asked you and you said you'd talk to Dave about that.
Great.
Okay. And we're not having an executive session. In lieu of that, I will send you an email about with the material. I mean, there was no obviously no action items tonight. It was my providing you with the position. I will write it up for you guys so that we can stay with it.
Okay.
About, the Open Public Meetings Act, insofar it was not an agenda item. I'll send you a memo from my firm on what's going to happen. There's nothing for you to comment or suggest this evening. It's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Thank
So, Erica, a motion has been made and seconded to close the meeting.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, who's seconding?
Brandy did.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everybody.
Everyone, thank you.